guys, Jake Tiesler here. Today I wanted to do a quick little video on the Mark III Supra, 1986 and a half to 1992. Toyota made a Supra, and that was the third generation Supra. It had an inline 6 and a inline 6 with a turbo named 7M GTE. It made something like 230 horsepower and 250 foot-pounds of torque. Yeah, and there's some little, if it was automatic, it made a little less, I think, and if it was like in one of the year models. Anyways, that's not the point. Point here is the Supras get a lot of hate, the Mark III Supras, and I've owned a few of them, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or something like that, 3 or 4, I can't remember. So I just wanted to, I'll post some pictures if I have some old pictures in the video also. So I just wanted to go over my ownership experience and why I still love them to this day. I still really fantasize about owning that old, smelly, head gasket blowing, rod knocking, torquey, 80s styling, I guess it was 90s styling Supra, 80s, not late 80s, early 90s. So I'm just gonna free talk about this. I don't have any organized anything basically, but there's a website that says 10 things that, it's like 10 things I hate about the Mark III Supra, and he says like the Supra is the worst car ever built, that Toyota ever made, and a few other things like that. Well, that's probably true, but if you consider, I just had this thought, if you consider what Toyota, okay, so my first car was a 1984 Mustang GT, and it was a piece of junk, but I thought it was good, it was decent enough. And what made it a piece of junk was it had holes cut out in the doors, the rear end was too small, so, and it wheel hopped, so I shattered the rear end doing a burnout in front of my friend's house after school one day. It just completely shattered the gears in the rear end. Had to replace the rear end. Me and my dad did that. And the clutch, it didn't make any power. It made like some torque down low, but no power up top. But sounded great. It's a Ford Mustang with a 5-speed 5.0. So that was my first car. Paid like $2,200 for it. So I got a Supra after that as my second car, because turbocharging was starting to become popular. I think it was the year 2000 or 2001, something like that, right before I graduated high school. I know it was right after high school. So it was about 2002, 2003. Okay, anyways, what made the Supra so cool was, compared to the Ford Mustang, you know, okay, regardless, the first Supra that I had was an 80, it's either 87 or 88. I think it was an 88 turbo. It was white, had blue cloth interior. It was a 5-speed. And the build quality was so much better than the Ford Mustang. Like, it's like the Mustang was just complete garbage compared to the Toyota Supra. So, just the way that you open the door, just starting from the door handle. Like on the Mustang, the door handle would like, just like rattle. You touch the door, it's like metal door handle that's all loose and jiggly. And then when you try to open the door on the Mustang, it's like clunk. You know, it's like this bunk thing. And on the Supra, it's like this nice, smooth, integrated handle that's like, I mean, we're talking about door handles here, but that's just one reference point that describes the whole build quality of the car if you're going to compare the two. One's built it's just two different things, completely different things. One is literally like a $10,000 car new, and the other one was like a $30,000 car new. It's like 3 times more expensive. I don't know the prices off the top of my head, but that's how much better the build quality was, like 3 times better. And then the next thing, like you jump in and the seat has an 8-way power adjustable seat. Okay, in 1988, like the Ford Mustang, I'm not sure if it had an airbag in it or not, like a bladder for your lumbar or not, but the Mustang that I had, the 84 GT, it had like a slide and then a tilt. That's all it had. So get into this thing, it was like total luxury. And it had all these cool like 80s, late 80s digital digital climate control. That was like, the Mustang had like this slide thing. It's like gunk, like, you know, where it goes from hot to cold and you slide it. It's like boom. You're like literally moving this flapper in the you're mechanically moving it, you know. So you know, and that's cool, and I respect that in its own way. But I'm just saying, like, that's how far the technology. So it might have been the worst Toyota they had ever built, but it was like 10 times better built than the Mustang, and a lot of other cars for that era. So maybe maybe the Mark III Supra is not great compared to the Mark IV, you know, but the Mark IVs right now, like a clean Mark IV is like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. A clean Mark III is like $7,000 or $8,000. So, okay, so the build quality was amazing. It just rode quiet and smooth. It wasn't loud and rattly and rough. It just had this nice. It just went down the road, just really cool. It was just a great GT car. So I'm gonna buy another one. I'm gonna sell my brand new Mustang and probably buy another Mark III Turbo. I'm gonna try to find a really clean one because I just think they're awesome cars. And the reason is because of the torque. I love the torque. I love when the turbo hit. So the rods were really long on the 7M GTE, and it had a big turbo and not a huge turbo, but it's not these small turbochargers that they put on four bangers for efficiency and gas mileage. This was put on for horsepower. So the long stroke plus the turbo, when the turbo hit, it just gave it a ton of torque. So you know, it would just spin the tires like crazy and give you this big thrust of torque, and that's so addicting. So just with like a 3-inch exhaust, a boost controller, you know, the car would make like, I can't remember, 250 or 300 to the wheels almost. And it would definitely make 300 torque to the wheels. And I think the car weighed between 35 and 38. I can't remember. I haven't studied up on them in a long time. But so the problems with is the head gasket. So the way I did it, when my head gasket blew, and the only reason my head gasket blew is because my fuel pump got rust. I got rust in the tank, so the fuel pump wouldn't supply fuel pressure under boost. So as I turned the boost up, it was not running properly. I actually just ran the piss out of it. I ran it so hard that I pulled off the interstate because I was going so fast for like 30 minutes. Me and my friend were cruising down the interstate at a high rate of speed for over 30 minutes, and it wasn't running right, I could tell, but the exhaust manifold was just glowing red hot. That's how lean it was running, and it didn't blow up the engine. So they're still really tough engines, and that engine had like 180,000 miles on it when I did that, and it didn't blow it up. But eventually the head gasket started to go soon after. I put a new fuel pump. I tried so many things figuring out why it wasn't running right, and finally I put a new fuel pump because all these people told me that a fuel pump isn't going to fix the issue. A fuel pump either works or it doesn't work. Well, that's a lie. It can partially work because the filter has rust, you know, all in it, and the tank has rust in it. So the fuel pump was partially giving full pressure, and I wasn't making any power in a boost. So I put a Walbro 255. And it just ran so amazing. It just ripped the tires off because I remember it ran so slow for so long, and then all of a sudden getting full power, it just was amazing. So I just put a Walbro 255, and then the engine started overheating. So I bought a JDM motor online, and it was like $1,000, and they shipped it for a couple $100. I had a mechanic put it in for like $500. Bought a HKS metal head gasket and ARP studs, and for like $2,000 I had a brand new engine with a metal head gasket. And that sounds like a lot, but I only paid $1,800 for the car, so it wasn't really. I mean, you're in the car for $4,000, and you've got like almost a 300 wheel horsepower Supra, and it's a cool car, man. The AC didn't work. I never got that working. So today back then when I was younger, I would ride around without AC, and that was no problem. But now I would just find when the AC was working, it had lower mileage. I ended up drifting that car into a tree and hit the rear quarter panel. Ended up selling it to my buddy, and he stripped it down and kind of used it as his project. He was working at Nashville Auto Diesel College and was learning how to weld, so I think he put this big roll cage in it and all sorts of stuff and stripped the interior out. Had plans to go to JZ, and then he ended up selling it to someone else. Anyways, then I got a 1J Supra. I had a what did I have? I had a 1J Supra. I traded for 2J GS300 Aristo. So I got this red Mark III. It had a 1J automatic. I drove that in college for a while. That was a cool car. We changed the timing belt on it for fun. I don't think it needed the timing belt change. We just changed it. I don't know why we did that. It took like 8 hours. Changed the timing belt, and that car ran great. It didn't have as much torque as the 7M. It's a 2.5 liter twin turbo. It made more power up top. It's a really smooth pulling engine. It wasn't extremely fast. It was probably just as fast as the 7M BPU, but it didn't have that huge torque shove down low, which was so addicting, which I loved. And I put a fuel cut dispenser, I think, and FCD, and a fuel pump in that one, and turned up the boost to 14 or 15, and went drag racing. Can't remember what I ran, like a 9.0 in the 8th or something, nothing fast. That was a cool cruiser. Cool car, straight body on that one. But anyways, I guess what I'm getting at is the Mark III Supra is underrated, and it's cheap to work on, cheap to build. Yeah, the 7M has rod knock. Yeah, it has it's prone to blow head gaskets, but you can torque the head bolts down and still enjoy the car at stock boost levels or just a little bit above stock, and it's gonna be fun, just like that. Now, if you want to put a bigger, so like if you're gonna do the head gasket, then why don't you just go ahead and upgrade the turbo for $500 and get some injectors and Lexus AFM, and then you'll get like another 50 or 100 rear wheel horsepower, and it'll still hold up just the same. So it's like either just leave it stock, or if you're gonna do the head gasket, then go all the way and really enjoy the benefits of having a stronger engine. But the car, it didn't always idle the smoothest. It sometimes had a miss at idle, but it's just a great first car or tuner car. And I love the lines. I love the old body style, the 90s look, the 90s square kind of look. So I'll probably end up getting another one soon. I wouldn't even mind an automatic because I'm in West LA, kind of like Venice area, and it's just tons of traffic all the time. So I wouldn't even mind having an automatic, but if I find a clean 5-speed, it's going to be a lot harder to find one. But they're almost giving these cars away. Yeah, it's 30 years old, so you're going to have a lot of dry rotted plastics and rubbers and stuff like that, but great car around. It's a great value right now. If you want to make 300 wheel horsepower for next to nothing, I don't know what other car you can do that in. So don't believe what other people say. It's a great car to drive. It's really fun. It has tons of torque. It's a great value. They're easy to pick up right now, and I think they're one of the best looking cars. If you just keep it stock or put MK4 wheels on it, or maybe just an aggressive offset wheel, slightly lowered, with just some basic upgrades, it's a cool car, man. So maybe the guy was right. It was the worst engineered Toyota, but Toyota makes great cars. So you're comparing it to like one of the greater car manufacturers in the world. So compared to '84 Ford Mustang, which is my first car, the Toyota Supra Turbo was a luxury sports car in comparison. Anyways, that's my little rant about the Mark III Supra and how much I love them. I also bought one when I was out here in LA. I think I got it for like $2,200 also. And it had a fresh engine with a head gasket. They've built the engine, I think. And what I did, I put brakes on it and some Michelin Pilot Sports and some kind of aggressive wheels, kind of aggressive offset wheels. And I took it to Buttonwillow and Streets of Willow and took it road racing or HP high performance driving events. So I also did that. Now, if you're going to track a car, it's not the best track car. My suspension wasn't set up properly, or the tires were just terrible, but it would just it would oversteer entering the corner. It's probably me being too aggressive on the brakes, but it's not a great car for road racing. You can make them great for road racing, but I think there's a lot better choices. But for just a cruiser around the street, making big power, drive it every day, it's still a Toyota. It's engineered great, has a lot of luxuries, amenities and stuff like that inside the vehicle that you're going to be hard to find, even in some newer vehicles. So it was way ahead of its time, and it came with a limited slip transmission, a limited slip differential. The transmission was bulletproof. It would hold, 800 wheel horsepower if you don't bang the gears. It was just a beefy car, and I loved it. So I'm gonna find me another one of these days. But anyways, what was your favorite car? What was your favorite car that you've owned? Have you ever owned a Mark III Supra? If so, what did you think about it? For the price point, what can you get that's better? I mean, you can get a Civic, you can get a Miata, you can get an old Mustang. There's a few cars that you can get for around the same price. But let me know in the comments what other vehicles you would buy instead of a Mark III Supra, let's say for the price of $3,500. Because there's a lot of Mark III Supras for $3,500. So in the comments, what would you buy instead of a Mark III Supra for $3,500? Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. Peace.